What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is still the preseason, so I had to get one of the GOATs of F1 Fantasy content creators on here. Rob, welcome to Pole Position. How is it going, sir?
Ewan, I'm so happy to be on. I'm really excited for this video because when you reached out and wanted to talk about price predictions, there's very few things that get me as excited as this in preseason. So looking forward to cutting up all the drivers and constructors with you.
Yeah, I mean, especially with so much movement on the grid last year. I mean, from 2023 to 2024, no new drivers, but now we've got all these rookies, some rookies that aren't rookies. I don't know. We'll get into it in a little bit. And then, yeah, just some general big names, just trading teams this offseason. But let's get into it. And why don't you just tell us what you're up to? If somehow someone is playing F1 Fantasy and they don't know who F1 Fantasy Hub is, introduce yourself.
I'm sure it's possible. So I go by the moniker on YouTube and Twitter /X as F1 Fantasy Hub. Been doing it for 3-4 years. This would be my 4th year as a content creator. I wouldn't profess to be an expert, but I do enjoy the kind of community engagement side of things. And yeah, I'm looking forward to another season. You pointed out it's going to be a super spicy and exciting one. And I think in terms of F1 Fantasy, there's a lot to look forward to. So really excited to see what transpires throughout the year.
Yeah, it's going to be, Ferrari. They did some TPC testing, I believe, today in Barcelona. I saw those lovely pictures. I mean, I'm a McLaren fan, but I do have the Monza shirt on today just because I knew you were coming on. You say your favorite team is Ferrari, your favorite drivers are Piastri and Duhan. And I was like, Rob's Australian, Piastri, Duhan, Australia. This will be easy. I'll find a picture of them together. And I had to scour the web. And this is from 2016 World Champs. So thanks to Ian Silvestrin, whoever you are. I do not know who you are, but thank you for letting me steal your picture. Rob, all the Australians together, just in their glory. So
yeah, I have to say, if I'm in the same room as Jack and Oscar at the same time, I'd be ecstatic. So I'll take the Photoshop image for now and manifest it for 2025.
Yeah, I did see, I think it was the actual Australian Grand Prix. They were like Aussie, Kiwi, oi, oi, oi. Like, how does it work there? Are the Aussies taking Liam Lawson under their wing for 2025? How's it going?
I think so. There's a definite rivalry across many sports. Rugby, cricket are two obvious ones, but I do think seeing someone like Liam come into the fold, the last time I think New Zealand had an F1 driver was Brendan Hartley, if I'm not mistaken, which was several years ago. But I don't think he had anywhere close to the level of expectation that Lawson does, certainly going into Red Bull. And, I think it'll be a good year for Liam. He's got some reps under his belt already. And I honestly do hope he does well. There's no kind of ill will or hope that he doesn't succeed at Red Bull.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear that the Aussies and the Kiwis get along more swimmingly than the English and the Scottish. I'm Scottish, and like Andy Murray back in the 2000s, if he won, he was British. If he lost, he was suddenly Scottish. So I don't know. They just threw us under the bus whenever they could, but I'm still not bitter about that 20 years later or anything like that. So, but today's episode is driver price prediction. So we're pretty much just going to be doing some over-unders, go down the grid, look at their 2024 starting price, just kind of touch on all 20 drivers, see where we think they are going to be. So we're just going to start off going from the back of the grid all the way to the front here. Nico Hulkenberg joining Stake this season, or Kick Sauber, or whatever we're supposed to call them. I never really know anymore. He was 6.4 when he was with Haas, and we all thought they were going to be back markers last year. Even Io Komatsu came out in preseason testing being like, we're 10th. Don't even worry about us. You won't even see us on TV at all. And it was like, bam, they came out of nowhere. And honestly, I mean, for me, especially, like, they caught me totally off guard. I had no idea that they were going to be good. And I think I ignored them far too long in 2024. And I hope I don't make the same mistake again, but Hulkenberg going into this tractor-like Sauber really does scare me. So what are your thoughts with the German here?
Yeah, I think he starts above his 6.4 million of last year. But I'll start off with an extremely hot take. I think Hulkenberg could be one of the worst F1 fantasy assets to own out of the gates. And why do I say that? Because he is an exceptionally good qualifier, and we know kind of what he did last season. You put him in an absolute forklift, that car will be at the back of the field without a doubt, and he's just bound to lose positions, even if his qualifying ceiling is 15th or 14th. Like, he's bound to drop spots if cars behind him, even in the rookies' case, like Hadjar or Behrman, have better race pace than Hulkenberg, the sitting duck. So, yeah, I'm not at the moment looking to go towards Hulk unless he's really affordable.
Right, I totally agree. I mean, now that you mention it, it'll probably be like his 2023 season where Haas were actually pretty good, like Ferrari on Saturdays. One lap pace was there, but then on Sundays, just sinking all the way back through the field. So that's the one thing about the game we love, F1 Fantasy, is the good Saturdays often mean bad Sundays for us as managers. So, yeah, I agree with you. Hulk will be over just because my thing is, I think most of the established drivers on the grid will rise in price just because there are so many rookies and so many unknowns heading into 2025. And one of them, right off the bat here, Gabriel Bortoleto, his teammate. So no stats for him, no starting price. And we didn't do an over-under for him because he was a rookie. We don't have any reference here. We're going to do that for all the rookies. But yeah, he come in under Hulk. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, he's got to be below Hulk, I think. I just have no idea what kind of driver he will be in F1. We know how good he was, back-to-back champion, F2, F3. He could be a rookie surprise. I think the expectations is the lowest among all rookies, so he could really surprise us. I just think it largely depends on how dreadful that Kick-Sauber looks like in preseason testing to get a read of what his price is, but I'd be surprised if it was above 6 million.
Yeah, that would be nice. That could be something Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas for our squads if we need to squeeze in some money, especially if he is just allowed to just trundle along at the back. I was actually listening to the Race podcast earlier, and they were talking about how, like, should Bortoleto have maybe waited out for a different seat on the grid? But being back-to-back F2, F3 champion, you don't get a Formula One seat all that much, but he probably didn't take that seat without getting a pretty good deal. Like, he was going to be here the entire season. And I'm not sure if we can say that about a lot of the other rookies. Like, I feel like Hadjar could be quite easily replaced if he's not really up to snuff. We all know about your countryman, Jack Doohan. We'll see how that goes. Although on my bold predictions episode, the first episode of the season that I did say he was going to race at least 6 races. So we'll see how that goes. But so Bortoleto, I think he has some good pedigree, but yeah, like you're saying, it's a forklift. Maybe that's insulting to forklifts. I don't know. But yeah, 6, if he was in the 5.5 range, it would be something where it's like, it kind of just takes like not a DNF or like something, just like qualify 19th in your rookie season and just hope you avoid the DNFs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, pick up some positions gained for sure.
Yeah, that's what Zhou Guanyu was so good at 2 years ago. I think he was the overtake.
2023.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on here from Kick-Sauber. We'll get a little bit faster as we go up the grid. Alexander Albon had a miserable 2024. Started off at 7 million. I think when I was doing my preseason stuff last year, I was touting him as like the sleeper pick of all sleeper picks. I was expecting big things from Albon in 2024, and he became a DNF merchant. I think you know that a little bit better than most. I know you had some bad luck with him at times last season in your squad, but as you can see here, he qualified 13th, which is pretty good, but fell down on Sundays a tiny bit. Although with the DNFs, that does affect it. 7 million in 2024. Rob, where is Alex Albon going to end up when the game launches?
I say under, but I don't say that with a lot of confidence, to be honest. I think it would largely be, again, dependent on what that car looks like in testing. He started last year at 7 million. It would probably be like a 6.8, a 6.7 if I did see him come in under that mark. If it was over, it would be 0.1 or 2 million above. So I think that's a fair price for this year as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go over just because what I was saying about, like, with Hulkenberg, there's so many rookies. I think Sainz can drag this team a little bit further up the grid. I'm interested to see where the game kind of prices all the rookies, how they see what's going on. I think I heard, like, some people are touting Williams to kind of like see their shot and like be flying up the leaderboard like 5th or 6th in the constructor, which would be a huge leap for them from 9th last
Hugely.
season. But yeah, I think while I say over, I feel like we're probably within like 0.5 of each other. Like you're saying under, I'm saying over. Like it's really close between where he's going to end up. He could just end up bang on 7 million again.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of a prove it year for Albon. He's had a pretty easy go of it since he returned to the grid with Williams. He's had Sargent. Colapinto did push him a little bit last season. We kind of saw him crack a little bit, but now he's got the big gun, Carlos Sainz, 18.5 million in 2024. This one's kind of a gimme. I'm not even going to have to, he's going to be under because he's in a Williams. However, how low can he go? Is he going to remain in the B tier asset, or do you think he's going to drop down to like a 13.5, a 14, where like he could be a huge budget building option for us at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I think he's probably somewhere between 11 and 13, but probably closer to the high side of 13. I think, to your point, yeah, he's a great budget building option. I look at him kind of like the Hulkenberg of last year, a guy that has, very good single lap pace. What that car, again, the race pace looks like will very much determine, what his viability is as a fantasy asset. But I do think Carlos will probably be at least 5 to 6 million less than what his starting price last year was, and it could be out of the gates a very good budget building option, as you say.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing his price. He's probably one of the more anticipated like price reveals that we're going to get in the game. Yeah, I think because you've got Lawson and like Antonelli in top tier cars, but also unproven, I don't think the game really needs to fill up that 15 to 17 million price bracket as much. So maybe Carlos will slip under there. I mean, I know Lance Stroll, he started last year at like 10.8. I can't see Carlos going that low, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's under for sure, but it really interested to see where he goes. Moving on here, Yuki Tsunoda, not a great season for him, and a worse offseason for him as well. Losing out to Liam Lawson for that Red Bull seat was 8 million last year. Where is he going?
I think, again, another driver similar to Albon, probably kind of right on the money. I'd say even or just over for Yuki Tsunoda. I think 8 seems like a fair price, but I really like your point around how bottom heavy the grid is with drivers in their first year. And so for that reason, Yuki's probably closer to 9 million, but he's one of a couple of drivers I'd put as just bang on 8 or bang on his price last year.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to go with even, but for show's sakes, I'm going to say over just to have a little bit of a get in the game a little bit. But I think it could be like 8.3, 8.5, not a ton going on here. But yeah, bold prediction again was Yuki's actually going to drive for Red Bull at some point this season. So I saw that he was announced as the reserve driver today. So Max Verstappen on paternity leave. I'm still going to claim that as a W if that happens. So yeah, I'll take that for my bold prediction for sure. Moving over here to another rookie, Isaac Hadjar, F2 runner-up last season. It was interesting. You were saying that Bortoleto is the most you were kind of saying that he has the most unproven rookie or something like that. But I think for me, it's Hadjar. It's probably just because I don't know enough about him kind of thing. And like I've caught a couple of F3 and F2 races of Bortoleto looking like really strong. And with the F2 field being as strong as it was last year, I was pretty impressed that Bortoleto came out on top. Nothing against Hadjar though. Unfortunately, I only watched the final race of the season where he like stalled out on the first lap or something like that, and it cost him the championship. But he has a great opportunity to prove himself here and kind of like make his name against Yuki Tsunoda, because Tsunoda has kind of taken it to all his teammates previously, like Ricardo, Nick DeVries, like he's and he did take it to Liam last year as well. So Hadjar has a tough test. Where do you think he's going to come in though?
I'd say him and Gabriel Bortoleto will be priced pretty similarly. I think, maybe Bortoleto gets a couple 0 million more simply just because, as you say, he's more proven in the junior leagues. But I don't think that means Hadjar is suddenly the bottom bargain basement asset So I'm guessing five and a bit.
Yeah, I think in 2023, I think what Sargent fell to, was it 4 or 3.5 at one point or something like that, or was it?
Trying to remember.
Yeah, but it got pretty low. But then the game didn't really mess around there. It was 5.5 to begin the year with Sargent. So I think that'll be the kind of floor for any of these guys. But
For sure.
yeah, it's kind of fun because we just don't know a ton about these rookies. So it'll be really interesting to see where they price them and what they value. I mean, Hadjar's got the better car, but also Racing Bulls were a huge disappointment to most of us last season who went with the Aston Martin model to begin the year, and it very much hurt us.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll move on here. So, Esteban Ocon, new face, new place, 5.6 points per race last year, 14.6 quality average, moved up the field a little bit, 7.8 he started at. Would you say he's in a better car this year with Haas? Alpine looked pretty strong at the end of last year, Pierre Gasly especially.
I'd argue so. I think, again, like I actually can't remember what I put for Ocon, but I think over would make the most sense.
I think we both put we both put over. Yes,
I definitely think he's in a much better car. He's, again, 7.8 seems like a slightly below starting price for him for what I expect for this season. I think he's somewhere in the 8s, but I do think he's going to be a reliable option on his day. He's good. I don't think I ever had him in my fantasy team last year. I've just never really liked him as a fantasy asset. You just never know what you're getting from him. And for some reason, there's always better midfield and back market drivers than Esteban Ocon. So for that reason, he's not really someone I've always got on my shopping list when it comes to the deadline.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he kind of ends up. He could be in that, I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a glob of 7.5 to 9.5 kind of million drivers. And it's, as we know, I think getting the right budget, guys, is going to be so key
really
to the entire season this year. So Ocon will definitely be a candidate there. And it'll be interesting to see if Haas can kind of continue their rise from last year and if it continues into 2025.
Yeah.
Moving on to Ollie Bearman, one of the hottest stars on the track, probably the next big thing, the possible replacement and waiting for Lewis Hamilton if he goes away from Ferrari in a couple of seasons. But he got 3 race starts last year and more than proved it. He came in for Saudi Arabia at 14 million because he was replacing Carlos Sainz. And then when he came in for Haas later in the season, it was at 13.3. Under, over, where are we going?
Got to be under. I think that everyone knew that he was just not at all value for money in that Haas at 13.3. I'd love to see Ollie come in probably not too dissimilar to what Ocon's price is, because then you've really got a decision on your hand. I think he's the most highly touted rookie, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's less than 8 million, 8.5 million. A lot of people will want him in their teams for the first race or two. So to make that decision harder for us, the developers have to put him in that 8 to 9, similar to Ocon. If the teammates are evenly matched, the prices have to be evenly matched if they're in the same car. So that makes sense. If they are in the same car, they're teammates. Yeah. But yeah, I think he'll be somewhere in the 8s, 9, probably in the 9s.
Yeah, I think last year they had Ricciardo at 9 and Tsunoda at 8, and that was kind of a little bit of a decision for us as well. So, but yeah, I mean, just F1 fantasy aside, who do you think is going to kind of get the better at Haas? Bearman, Ocon? What are you thinking?
I want to say Bearman, but I don't say that with a lot of confidence. I think Ocon's experience, as erratic as he can be at times, will certainly put him in good stead. He's in a new team environment. I think he's got motivation to do well. He's naturally the team leader from that experience. So we might see a bit of a slower start for Ollie, but by the mid-season break or kind of around that point in time, I definitely think he'll be close to Ocon's level.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation because Ocon is the more experienced driver, obviously. But Haas have been supporting Bearman for almost 2 years now. They have wanted him desperately in this car, and now they finally have the opportunity. So for Ocon, you kind of hope he's not going into another situation where Gasly start to get favored over him at the end of last year. It'd be a shame if that happened, but I could see maybe Haas being the Ferrari kind of like sister team kind of thing. Maybe they are getting a little bit more of a directive to be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, just give Ollie that update a little bit earlier."
I
So
mean, that's such a good point. I feel as though he's the golden child for the Ferrari academy per se. There's not really a future for Ocon at that team beyond his contract, unless of course he performs really well. So curious to see how it all unfolds this year.
exactly. All right, we'll keep moving up here. Pierre Gasly, we just talked about Alpine a little bit there. Former S1 Ocon had a tremendous end to the year, just crushed it in Brazil. Looked really good in Vegas too, until I think he was going so fast that he blew his car apart or something like that. And then Qatar and Abu Dhabi was looking really impressive. So 7.8 last season. Alpine were pretty awful to begin the year. Where do you think he's going to end up when the game launches?
Definitely over 7.8 in the nines for me. I think he showed the last 6 races of the season that he was the most informed midfield driver. 3 or 4 points finishes in the last 5 or 6, and then that P3 qualifying result in Vegas, and then obviously the Brazil result too. So definitely, I think someone that will be expected to do big things for Alpine this year to continue that midfield trajectory or that battle, even though they seem to be the team regressing the most among kind of others in the midfield the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think with Alpine taking on a Mercedes engine in 2026 for the new regs, Gasly's going to want to hold on to that seat and hope that they can kind of find like magic in the bottle there. But yeah, just looking at his last 4 results, it was 30 points in Brazil, -12 in Vegas because of the DNF, and then 21 and 14. So really ended the year quite strongly for the French driver. And like going to be another one in the glob of 8 to 9 million drivers here. It's going to be really tough. Like
it will be.
Yeah. And so like, not really sure why I'm going to put this out probably in a couple of weeks, but like right now it's January 28th. So we're 1 month away from preseason testing. I can't wait. Like we'll see where this all kind of shakes out in just over a month's time. So it's gonna be great. Moving over to, I got to click back on this screen again. Jack Doohan. How many races is he going to get? 8 points per race, 1 race last year. Started at 10.9 because he just came in at a kind of random price. I feel like I was very strange end to the F1 fantasy pricing debacle that was the 2024 season. I think we all know where we're going here, but I will let you put the nail in the coffin for Jack Doohan over under here.
Yeah, under for Jack. 10.9 is excessive at any for any rookie driver, and I do think probably in that bottom tier glob of the Bortoletos and the Hadjars, he might be a little bit more because he's got 1 rep, but I don't really consider that that valuable of a repetition. So I think in the 6s seems about right for him.
Yeah.
One thing I've thought about for Jack particularly, even though those cheapies, those Hadjars, those Bortoletos might actually be popular in the first couple of races if we're trying to squeeze in those more expensive assets, but I think a drawback for Jack is that if his contract only goes 5-6 races, that means you're essentially booking a transfer for him out of your team, and you might have other fires to put out down the line. I'm not saying 5 or 6 races is panic stations. You've got plenty of time to plan for that, but it's probably, if I had to choose between him and the other 2 rookie drivers, Bortoleto and Hadjar, I'd probably have him at the bottom.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I feel really bad for him because he's been a good soldier for Alpine. He's been the reserve driver. He's just kind of like been there, and then for all this to come along, but it's F1. It is like these are the 20 best drivers in the world. You gotta. But I hope he just puts his head down. The problem is, I kind of wish the first race wasn't Australia because he's just going to have even more pressure. Like if it was in like Baku or something, he could just like hide away in a corner and just put his head down. But like all eyes are going to be on Jack. So I'm going to go under as well. 10.9, nowhere near. He's going to come close to that price. But yeah, I'd love to see him get a fair shot, but I don't know. Alpine seem to have other plans. I even heard another rumor today that said like testing could determine whether Colapinto comes in for Australia. I'm like, what is happening? Yeah, I mean, if Alpine's all about money, like surely they're at least going to keep doing in for the Australian Grand Prix. Like if that's all they care about, like but
that team puzzles me anyway.
Yeah,
under.
Under. Unfortunately for Jack right now. Now we come to what I said in the preseason predictions as I think the most boring team in F1 fantasy because I have no interest in Aston Martin this season at all. I don't think they have a lot of interest in this season either. I think they just want to get to 2026 where Newey can, when Guardian Leviosa magic his work on the 2026 regs and just be done with it. But Alonso here, 15.8 last year. Where are we going for the veteran?
It's got to be under. I think he started last year way overpriced, and I think he'll probably come in not too dissimilar to Carlos Sainz. I think maybe a little below Sainz, but Aston Martin, I don't expect to see any significant improvement until the second half of the year when Newey enters the fold. And I wouldn't be surprised if he can turn that car around after the summer break, that Fernando enters into podium contention. But for the first dozen or so races to kick the year off, it's not really someone on my radar at the moment.
Yeah, I'm even wondering if they care about 2025 after the summer break because I don't even think Newey starts until March. So like the concept will be like finalized by then, like that kind of thing. And there's gonna be like, guess to 2026. Like, let's go. Yeah. So yeah, under for Alonso. I'll be interested to see like him versus Sainz. I mean, Alonso's kind of, he's hanging on for this 2026, 2027 silver bullet that he's hoping. Whereas like Sainz is using 2025 as the chance to get back to the top. If a seat comes open, if like Lawson like kind of stumbles, if Verstappen's like, I'm going to go take $1 billion to go to Aston Martin or whatever it is. So we'll see how it comes down to there. Lance Stroll, 10.7. I don't even remember what I put on here, but where are we going here? 10.7.
Under. It's got to be under. Just nothing interesting and exciting about Lance Stroll. 10.7 for me is just too expensive. He's got to be at the same price or even lower than Gasly or Ocon or Behrman for me to even consider him. If he's above any of those guys, regardless of the car he's in, don't even bother for me.
Yeah, that's why I went with even. I'm just wondering if the game is a little apprehensive of like, they still got the fifth best car. Like, can we really price him under like an Alpine or a Haas kind of guy? Like, just because they got caught out so much a couple of seasons ago with Aston Martin. But like more broad picture, because last season, if I remember correctly, they unleashed the prices before testing. And I think
it was 2022 they released the prices before testing, and then 2023 they released the prices before testing, and then 2024
and then
they released the prices after testing but didn't take into account testing.
Yes, that's what it was. Yes, thank you. The historian of F1 fantasy as well. It's just like, what do we? Yeah, so I hope we get after testing, and it gets, because the nice thing about testing being so much long, or like there's such a big gap this time, is like they should have time to kind of adjust. So
sure,
but we'll see where. All right, moving on to kind of this is what people came to see, the top 4 teams. What are we doing here? Yeah. George Russell, 18.8 in 2024. Lewis Hamilton is gone. It is his time to shine. His villain origin story is ready to kind of take on the World Drivers' Championship. 19 points per race last season. Qualified 5th, mostly 6.8 race average. George Russell, he's got a new do. It's the kind of flow is gone. He's back to the short hair George, which personally I think looks pretty good. So, but where are we going? 18.8.
Yeah, over for me. I think it'll be in the 19s or at highest the low 20s. Can't really see it being any higher than that just because of the car. I think is easily the 4th fastest this year. It'll be too strong for the Aston Martin, but I just don't think it'll be up there with the other 3 teams.
So under for you. I went even just because Antonelli, Lawson are going to be below him in my head. But I'm just wondering how, like, there's more like a game theory with my price, but probably just overthinking this. But I just don't know how high they're going to like price Norris, Piastri, the 2 Ferraris that everyone's going to be after this mega hype train. That every time I look on Twitter, it's a Ferrari tweet. I'm just like,
truly,
oh my God, I'm just like losing my mind. So, and then like, yeah, you just got like the 4-time reigning world champion Max Verstappen in there. Just like, hi, I'm probably going to be 24, 25, 26 million as well. So yeah, I think that it's going to be close in this gap for me, just to kind of like a game theory of like giving people more of an option. That way like say you go like Norris Bortoleto, or you could go Russell with Behrman, like kind of like
Yeah.
matching these pairs kind of thing. So that's why I kind of went in this area, but like it could be around the 19 mark, like you were talking, like probably not that much higher than
I think
you were
19.
thinking as well, but
Yeah.
that's where I was at.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get on to Antonelli in just a second, but I do think he comes in above Antonelli and Lawson, but not higher than anyone else. So in that kind of 19s, 20s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think we're on the same wavelength there.
Mm.
So pretty much. But
Yeah.
speaking of Kimi Antonelli, like congrats to him, got his driver's license today. So good job. So now he can drive a street car instead of just a race car. Oh, that must be so boring for him. So we don't really have a guess here, but we've kind of been talking about it. We've touched on it a little bit here and there, but like I'm thinking 16.5-ish. Where are you at?
Yeah, right on the money for me as well. I think 17. I think he's going to be lower than Lawson, but he absolutely cannot be a B tier asset. I think a C tier asset. Sorry, he's got to be above 15. That's just a cheat code otherwise. So I think 17 seems about right. A couple million less than Russell. I think Lawson, again, spoiler alert for what I'm about to say, but I think Lawson will probably be $1 million more than what Kimi is.
There we go. I like it. Yeah, I think Antonelli's the hype is going to be, I mean, Mercedes needs to get the social media team on Mercedes needs to get on it because Ferrari is winning the off season right now. So like, McLaren, they've got the constructors championship. It's whatever. They're like, we'll be back. We'll get there, whatever. But yeah, Mercedes, like they got Antonelli. They're like, let's go. Let's get this going. Like, but oh, well, it is what it is. Moving over here to the 4-time world champion. Like we are just talking about, Max Verstappen came in at 30 million. And broke our hearts because we had no idea how the game was going to go last year. Disastrous. We're all like, well, he scores the most points. We're going to get him. That makes sense. But it was not meant to be. So 30 million. I think we all know where we're going here. But where are we going, Rob?
For me, under, but again, it won't be by much. I think it's just him, Leclerc, Norris, maybe Hamilton, or have all got to be within about $1 million or $2 million of each other. It's easy A tier asset, but I don't know what's considered fair for Max. What's your initial read of what his price could be?
So it's really tough because obviously you want the game to be like flexible and you want to have people gain budget and stuff, but I just don't know how you can really like. Testing is a month away, but if Red Bull does have the third best car, like how can you price Max that far away from, like you were just saying, Leclerc, Hamilton, Norris? Piastri might be the first B tier asset, but having 4 A tier assets in the game as drivers is going to be insane. I don't think, I don't understand how we're going to be able to we won't be able to fit them all in our team. It's just going to be madness. But like you were saying, great point there. Like, how can he's probably going to be the most expensive driver, I would think. It might be Norris. I can't tell. Just because McLaren was so far and away the best car at the end of the year there. Well, at least compared to Red Bull. But I don't know if it's going to be like, they're trying to make it like a simpler game. They're trying to appeal. And it's kind of like, if you log into the game as a first-time fantasy player and the 4-time reigning world champion is not the most expensive player, I'm curious to see how they deal with that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think, though, again, it's got to be a hard decision. Like Max can't be cheap enough. Like obviously can't be below 25 million, but he can't be so much more expensive than Lando Norris or Charles Leclerc, or he just becomes obsolete for the entire season. We saw that from about the midsummer break last year. No one had him because we soon realized as soon as you could get 2 premium drivers at a more affordable price, there was no point having Max and 4 midfield drivers. So I do think it's got to be a competitive price. But again, is Red Bull third and they're half a second off the pace, or a Red Bull third and they were within a couple of tenths? I think that would be a big difference in testing and what we see.
Yeah, it's gonna be super interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to see. I can't wait. I can't believe there's so long to wait for. That's why we're doing price predictions. Like sad dudes, just like, oh well, let's just guess about it. Let's just talk about it. So, yeah, but yeah, 30 million is too much. He's gonna be lower than that, but like, is that the 27 to 28 range feels appropriate for all four of those drivers. But
Yeah.
just really curious how they're going to get us to build budget with like the field. Like it's gonna, like I'm already thinking about like George Russell plus Behrman. Can I fit in someone else? I don't know. Like it's like, but yeah, that's what kind of got a lot of us last year. We're like, well, like those guys are not as good, but you know, Red Bull just fell off at the end of the year, the second half of the year, and it was really caught everyone by surprise when McLaren and Ferrari just made a huge leap there. So,
Truly.
but enough about Max. Like he's kind of boring. It's whatever. But Liam Lawson, 10.2 is where he came in at last year, but now he's in a Red Bull. He's not going to come in at 10.2, Rob, but is he going to be over?
Yeah, he's got to be like way up there. He's got to be in the 18s. He's got to be. I think, as I said before, he's definitely a million at least more than Kimi, just because of his 11 race starts as you've got on the screen here, and then not more than George, simply because of inexperience. So I think him and Kimi will be an interesting dilemma for us at one point or another early in the season if we're looking to build budget out of the gates with B tier assets. So I'm excited to see what Liam can bring to the team, but not more than 20 million. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think he could be one of those budget building options that we get at the beginning of the season. We'll see kind of how that goes. But yeah, like Antonelli has the hype and the speed and the memorable crash at Monza. But like in my bold predictions video, I had Liam Lawson actually ahead of George Russell in the World Drivers' Championship to end the season. So that's kind of my bold prediction. And I have him winning a race this season. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, 10.2, like he's going to be like way up there. This is kind of like the whole theory that we were thinking about around the summer break last year. It's like, well, maybe you should get Daniel Ricciardo in your team, because if he moves up to Red Bull, he'll be like an 18 million driver priced at 11. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be for Danny Rick. It never materialized that way. But yeah, like just like in general, like I know Checo really like faltered at the end of the year, but what do you think, like F1 fantasy managers, should we be expecting kind of similar results from like regular Checo before the fall kind of thing with Lawson, or does he have a higher ceiling, or should we lower our expectations?
I think his ceiling for the first handful of races is probably about P5, P4. I'd be so surprised if he ends up on the podium before we get to Miami, for example. So I do think he's going to, if you compare him to Kimi Antonelli, I think he'll probably, I guess, to the contrary of your predictions for Liam winning a race, I actually think Antonelli will have more highlight moments this season, but Lawson will be a more consistent driver. I just think, you go back to Antonelli's debut weekend in FP1 in Monza, crashing the wall. I think that'll just be a rookie betting in. I think Liam's comfortable in a car. We've seen him race wheel to wheel with so many experienced drivers in the last 12, 18 months. So I think that will hold him in good stead, but I'd be surprised if he's contending for podiums out the gate.
Yeah, that sounds about right for me as well. All right, we're kind of getting into really serious time now, and I even did away with the prototypical Lewis Hamilton because Ferrari came out with these beautiful pictures of Lewis and Charles the other day, and I was like, I gotta get those on. I gotta get them on screen. So Charles Leclerc here, 28.5 points per race last year, led the entire field at 1.2 points per million. It was a fantastic fantasy asset, crushed it in this last race of the season as well. 19.1 he started in 2024. Where is the Monegasque driver going to be at the start of the 2025 season?
I mean, did we give it away earlier when we were like,
did.
He's got to be above 25?
yeah.
I think he's got to be over 19 easily. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Leclerc and Lando and Lewis all start at like 24 and a half. You get them for one race. And wouldn't that be like a decision for all of us? Is, we have to, book in a transfer if they suddenly go from a B tier to an A tier asset after one or two races, or do we bide our time with someone like a Liam Lawson or an Oscar Piastri, a little bit more affordable? And I think he's going to be close to 25 million, if not a touch over. So I don't know. Yeah. Not sure what to expect. What's your read?
Yeah, I think he's going to be right there, 24.5 5-ish. And yeah, it's going to be like, we're going to be reading the practice times and being like, okay, so I think Ferrari's going to finish 5th this weekend. So he'll only go up like 0.3. So we can keep him for net. Like, are we going to be trying to figure out who doesn't win the Australian Grand Prix so we can keep them in our team for one more week? I really don't know. It's probably going to overthink it. I know I definitely will overthink it. But yeah, I think Oscar is probably going to be a B tier asset for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be like Charles, Lewis, Lando, Max. That's going to be such an interesting price reveal. And I wouldn't be surprised, like you were saying. I mean, Charles and Lewis were 0.2 apart, like almost all of last season, I think. Like pretty much ended that, or they started that close and then they were there as well. I remember when I had Adam on during the fall break, I asked him Charles Leclerc versus Lewis Hamilton. He did say he had to go with his boy, Lewis Hamilton, would be priced a little bit more. So we'll see. We'll see. Testing should give us some clues. But speaking of Lewis Hamilton, the Photoshop is gone. The awful, like, glossed over, like, what happened to his face Photoshop is gone. He actually has a picture in a Ferrari suit. He was 19.3. We've already given it away as well. He's going to be over, but it's just like this general conversation of where are these guys going to end up is just so fascinating to me. But where are your, like, Charles been with Ferrari for a few years now. Like, that is his team, but this is Lewis Hamilton we are talking about. Like, what are your expectations for, like, the Italian squad this season?
I mean, I think they have to be aspiring to be the Constructors' champion. I don't necessarily think they will be, but that's got to be the benchmark for the team this year. And I think Lewis definitely comes in above 19.3 without a doubt. I'm curious to see if he actually is priced the same. I'd probably expect him to actually be a tad lower than Leclerc. And I say that because qualifying was his weakest point of his season last year. And it'll take him at least a half dozen races to bet in to the team and to the car. I don't think that suddenly means he's like $1.5 million less than Leclerc. But again, to make the decision harder for us fantasy managers, do we go for someone like Leclerc who had his most complete season as a driver last year out of the gates? Or do we go for someone like Lewis who might struggle to qualify, actually does quite well on the race day, picks up a few extra positions gained and overtakes from starting a little bit further down? So I'm not sure what 22, 23, 24 million could look like for Lewis. Probably on the high side. I'm sure you're inclined to agree, though.
Yeah. But I'm going to come back and put you on the spot. If Lewis was 1.5 million less than Charles, would that tip you over to take the 7-time champ?
I mean, if Lewis starts in the A tier, I probably won't go near the guy. So he'd have to be, I think he could be like, let's say Leclerc, hypothetically, of course, starts at like 24.5, like you were talking about. If Lewis starts at like 22.5, 23 million, you can go from Leclerc to Hamilton in one move after a few race weekends. Once Leclerc's in the A tier, build a bit more budget through Lewis and then pivot out of him once, or into Oscar even, if you think he's not worth the money. So yeah.
A
couple of different
options. It's kind of that like cascading waterfall thing. Like just ride them to the A tier and then let them go, and we'll get back there eventually. So like if you love something, let it go and it'll come back to you. Like that's what we'll do with all these B tier, A tier drivers. Like it's got to be right on the edge. God, just really. Yeah, I knew I was gonna be excited talking about this, but like I'm generally like, can the game launch? Like, let's go. So, all right, moving over from the second place constructors to the McLaren Constructors Champions, Oscar Piastri, your boy here, 2 race wins, 24.3 points per race last season. Started off at 19 million. He was like my biggest swing and miss in my preseason price predictions last year. I think I said he was going to be like 9 million because I was like, I don't know. Do they still trust McLaren? And then he was like 19. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, they know something we don't. So where is the Aussie coming in?
Aussie Oz, I got to put him above 19 million and over, I think, for this year as well. Probably again on the cusp of the A tier. If he's over 25 million, becomes irrelevant from the off. So I think he's got to be 22s, 23s. But I believe Oscar could be a really viable 2x option for the first few races of the season. We saw how consistent he was last year. And I just loved, it wasn't until he got to Baku where he entered the A tier. I just loved those consistent price rises you were getting out of him. It was 0.3 or it was 1 million almost every race week between then and Baku. So I think he could this could be his breakout fantasy season, to be honest. Maybe not his breakout season for his career, but he could be a real hot button driver for the first half dozen or so races this season.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually. So, like, if you have this 2x, like we're just talking about, like Lewis, Charles, like if they are so close to the A tier and you could like have to use a transfer like that early in the season, Oscar could be a fantastic like set and forget option at the beginning of the year. And like last year, when there were no silly papaya rules or whatever, he was taking it to Lando. And I think he's going to come into the season being like, okay, like fresh start. My teammate is level on points with me. There are like no rules. Like it's his home Grand Prix. He's going to come out firing. He's shown us that he can take it to Lando on the first lap. So like, I feel like there are not going to be any rules going on for McLaren to begin the year until they kind of like sort out who could be pushing for the drivers' championship for sure. But the only thing is, Oscar, I think, does need to improve his consistent Saturday pace a little bit. Like I thought I saw like huge steps in his tire management, like just like that was fantastic in year 2. Like he had a little bit of a wobble at the end of the year, but it is what it is. I don't know. Like he knew that they were pushing for Lando to win the drivers' championship, stuff like that. Like that can get in a guy's head. But yeah, I think with it, like the score is 0-0 right now. Like it's all to play for. So if Oscar can come out there, put on a couple of podiums, maybe grab a win in the first 3 races and be like, no, this should be my team.
Yeah.
Like I think like that could be a fantastic F1 fantasy asset. I'm just already so hyped for Australia. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Before we jump into Lando, I do think I agree with your point entirely. I do think he is set and forget, and we want some of those reliable assets from the get-go, because I'm sure by the time we get to Japan or China, Japan, I think it is, we're going to want to have drivers that can build budget if we're on Limitless in the first sprint race of the season, or someone that we can just leave and score points and focus on other areas that may require a bit more TLC.
Yeah. Some of those back markers that we may have guessed poorly on, unfortunately, as is sometimes the case in F1 fantasy. Oh, God. I'm still scarred from a V carb last year. What was that? What were we thinking? So, God. Okay, so we're gonna go over here to who everyone now is. I hear more people touting Lando Norris as the 2025 drivers' champion than Max Verstappen, and I think I'm taking crazy pills. I know McLaren has the best, they have the better car and stuff like that, but this is still Max Verstappen we're talking about. Like you've got Lando, Piastri, Lewis, and Charles all battling like a 4-way battle, and I can just picture Max Verstappen just picking up seconds and thirds all season, like maybe 6, 7, 8 wins or whatever, and just going back to back in the drivers' championship. But Lando, 23 million last year. Where is he going? He like kind of. I didn't expect him to challenge last year. I don't think we expected anyone to challenge Red Bull last year. But what are you thinking? Lower, higher? Where are we going?
Yeah, I think higher for me. Got to be A tier from the outset. Got to be similar to Max. I think, again, to make that decision challenging for us if we want someone like Lando, a proven commodity. Does he have that driver of the day in his pocket this season? I think that's a pretty big factor, though, isn't it?
I think the Lando love is a little gone. Now that he's a front runner, he's not like the lovable, like kind of hipster pick anymore. Like I think that's gone. I think there's a lot of lovable characters in F1 now. I mean, Lewis with Ferrari now, like God, I mean, with that backing, like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should be looking at Lewis for driver of the day, just
really?
like set and forget there. So but yeah, I think the love, I don't think the love will have gone for Lando, just like the kind of like, oh, he's so cute. It's like, nah, he's kind of like challenging. He might win the whole thing. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. Do you have a lean? Are you touting Lando? I mean, I won't hold you to it, so you don't have to, whatever. But
depending on when this video comes out, may either be spoiling my predictions I'll do on my own channel at some point, but I've got Lando second in the drivers' championship for this year.
Ooh, that's that's what we call a tease in the business, because I won't make you reveal who you've got first. But yeah, second. I had him second as well in my bold predictions there. So but yeah, that's gonna do it for the drivers predictions. Rob, I think I'm gonna have you back for the constructors as well, because just it's been too much fun. I'm not sure we'll have as much fun talking about the teams as we did the drivers, but it's been great having you on. Thanks for coming on. Just remind people where they can find you, watch you, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, F1 Fantasy Hub, YouTube, Twitter, X, Reddit, posting there as well frequently. So yeah, it's going to be a great season, and can't wait to get to preseason testing in no time at all. It's going to be here before we know it.
I know. Yeah, I am very ready for just some concrete stuff to break down in F1 Fantasy. We'll have some like team liveries coming out soon. All that stuff we can overanalyze. Like, oh, the Ferrari red looks slightly better this year. But yeah, we will see. But yeah, once again, thanks for coming on, Rob. It's been a great time. And yeah, like if you've liked this video, give it a like below. Go onto Rob's channel, give him a follow as well. Like, subscribe to both of our stuff. And yeah, that'll do it for today's episode. So once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I will talk to you next time.